I'm Jerry Barron, Cirrity's Chief Marketing Officer, and I am responsible for sales and marketing. And I'm excited about our session today. Those of you who have been following our Reseller Success webinar series know that we at Cirrity are very, very committed to partner success. To give you some highlights of some of the results that our partners have had in working with us, since the beginning of the year, actually, we've actually seen 62% growth in revenue from partners. Our partners are becoming more and more successful in selling their cloud services out into their market. We've also seen the number of partners that are generating revenue with cloud services increase by 42%. One of our goals for this webinar today is any of you who aren't satisfied with the level of activity, with the level of growth that you're seeing in your market, we want to share with you some thoughts and ideas on how you can implement some of the best practices that we've talked about. We've had 2 webinars on best practices, the 10 best practices of partners, 10 best practices of reseller sales reps, and today I've invited Don Gracy with Altus Alliance to come and speak with us about his experience in helping VARs and MSPs to grow their businesses. Don has a significant amount of experience in working with VARs and MSPs. I met him in working with one of our partners as he was helping them to develop their cloud business and help them go through the transformation of their business to be able to incorporate and sell more managed and cloud services. And I think what you'll find in this session is that Don has some very actionable and practical things that you can do immediately to start to build your business. And this is all about setting you up for success and seeing accelerated cloud sales in 2017. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don and look forward to the next 60 minutes when we talk about ways that you can put our best practices into action and start to see your cloud services grow. Don.
Hey, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you having me on today. And I know some of you out there know me. I've looked through the registration list and certainly saw a few familiar names, and hope to have some continued dialogue with you. Maybe we can get a chance to talk again soon. I thought I would start off, not with a big commercial, frankly, but just to sort of set the tone. I've been around for a while in your space. I'm seeing all kinds of things that are going on, obviously disruptive trends in the marketplace that are calling for change. And obviously Cirrity represents a technology stack that fits right into all of that. So I've been working for many years. I'll let you guys can read this, and you'll get the slides later on. But I've been around for a while in the space, worked with and at a number of your peers and perhaps even competitors. I'm up here in the Northeast. So it's exciting. I also just recently, I've had my own practice for a number of years, but I recently joined up with a company called Altus Alliance, which expands my capabilities significantly. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll get on to our topic for today. So what Altus does, and don't worry that you can't read all of the sideways letters. The point is there's tons of content and methodologies there to help companies, big and small, startup and mature, to get where they want to go from a revenue traction perspective. So I've historically spent more of my time over here in the sales process optimization space in my 25 plus years of my career in consulting business. I heard a noise, and somebody might be trying to speak up. Did I catch somebody trying to talk? Is there a question? Okay, sorry. So what Altus has brought to me is the ability to get involved way earlier with smaller startup companies. Altus is a company that's worked with companies in the much earlier stage of their life cycles. And why I think that's relevant here is because we have a lot of you who are trying to transform your business. You may have an existing organization that's got lots of process and people and successes and customer references, but you're trying to do this new thing called cloud, and it feels a lot like a startup. So I think that makes it even more exciting, and that's the reason why I decided to join forces with the Altus Alliance, and we can always talk more about that, but that is the end of the commercial for here. So what I really wanted to start with today is, just thinking of, having each one of you that are on the call today sit and think about, your customers across this context. And a lot of people don't necessarily think about the lifetime value of a customer in terms of the profitability that they've had with them year over year. And unfortunately, if you look at how this staggers from left to right, a lot of times your customer that starts off year one or year zero, let's call it, isn't always that profitable. It may actually be a cost to you. But over the course of the lifetime, treating that customer right, perhaps you're cross-selling, you're doing more with them, you're getting more lines of business that you're selling into. Maybe you get an opportunity to get some cost savings by serving them more effectively. If you're lucky or smart, you can help get referrals from that customer to get to the next customer. And dare I say, you might even be able to get a price premium as you move forward. So, again, this is a nice way of thinking about especially all of your key clients and the ones that you're involved with maybe in the earlier process and thinking, how do I get them from here over to here? So now let me also put up the right side of this slide, which I think really makes us scratch our heads a little bit when we think about this disruptive force called the cloud that's going on. And I know that, many companies are just starting to finally believe that it's happening, but this is from a credible source. We all know it's happening. The question is how fast is it happening? You can see it's a gradual, as you see the traditional IT is gradually going down. The public cloud usage is gradually going up, and the private cloud is also gradually going up. So, you can probably watch and wait for a little bit. But it's my opinion and strong recommendation that, anybody who's out there watching and waiting, it's definitely time to get serious. And so I thought, what better of a time to talk about this but the end of 16 going into 17. So this is just kind of a funny or a second way of sort of asking the same question. Which company is more like yours? Are you embracing the cloud and really thinking about aligning your processes? If you're a CEO or an executive leader, are you thinking about, all the processes and people, skill sets, offerings that you have to make sure that you are relevant in this new world? Or are you sitting around watching and waiting like the two frogs waiting in the pot? I think everybody's heard the frog analogy when it just starts getting gradually hotter, and you're not quite sure what it is. You may have even lost track on the fact that some of your key clients have defected or gone sideways on you. You're not quite sure why. You don't have the time to stop and look around. But the reality is that there's trouble brewing, right? For those who are not embracing. And so I just wanted to kind of have that in our minds as we go through this call. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the context of what do we do about it today. So the objectives are, I want to have, as I mentioned, a broad message to, if you're a sales rep and you're out in the trenches, or if you're a sales manager managing a bunch of reps that you're trying to, change and, get them to start to sell the cloud offerings, et cetera, or if you're a top executive across the corporation. I'm going to try to keep this discussion at a point where everybody can get something out of this. Of course, I want to talk a little bit more about what's working versus not. Jerry's, I think, done a great job of taking a look across his last few years of business in Cirrity and put that into a couple of webinars that clearly articulated what's been working for the partners that are selling the stuff. But what I want to do is I want to take it a little bit one step further. I want to kind of collect the pieces, and I want to help us get a little bit clearer of an execution path that you can start to put in place right away. In fact, right after this call. The point being in the last bullet there that I want to give you some stuff that's actually take it home and use it, right? And the last footnote on this is that although this very much ties into driving cloud sales, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth and also say that these principles and concepts and tools and templates that I'm going to show you today are equally as valuable for your on-prem sales. So it's not like you're going to be going down a narrow alley and you're going to be stuck and you're not going to be doing anything for the existing business that's probably keeping the lights on today. Okay, fair enough. So the agenda will be, we'll talk about pros and cons, and we'll review very quickly Cirrity's webinar highlights that I thought was just great. And so again, if you haven't listened into those, I'd strongly recommend tuning back in. I think Jerry has some of the replays available for everybody. I'll go into this Cloud Sales Acceleration Program that I call it. Again, we'll show you some specific examples of some content. And, of course, I can't put out everything out there today. We don't have enough time, but I've selected a few things that I think will be valuable for you just to get the process going. And then a suggested next step or two. So let's start a little bit with why partners are not selling cloud solutions. I've talked with a number, I've worked with a number, I've heard them all. But if you again think back to that first slide I put up in the context of your customers, your key customers, what's happening on a broad basis in the marketplace, and there's other stats. I can pull up slides that talk about 95% of customers, no matter what size or vertical they're in, are using some form of cloud. The public cloud, I think, is expected to grow at something like 44% year over year from, I think, 14 through 2019. So there's a lot going on there. So I guess my point at the bottom kind of encapsulates it all, is that there's lots of reasons that exist. There's probably more that you've come up with, but the reality is they're just not valid anymore. We can't really watch and wait. We've got to start to invest. We've got to think about what our key obstacles are. If your customers aren't asking for it, they're probably buying it from someone else. They may seem more expensive, but it really depends on the customer. Yes, you may slow down a deal, and if I put in a cloud option, hey, that might slow me down and it might shrink, and who knows, dare I even say it might go away for the time being? Maybe. But if you look at the big picture and the value that you're going to provide to the customer of now becoming a consultative force at the account, you have an opportunity to step very far up the chain in terms of how they view you, and they'll think of you much differently. And in the course of that lifetime customer value, and I would say even shorter periods than that, I think this year you'll have an opportunity to get involved in more interesting, richer conversations than you have in the past. Big one, sales doesn't make enough money. There's something wrong with the compensation plan. It doesn't, if you haven't thought about your compensation plan yet to make sure that it allows for a cloud option in your business, don't be surprised if your salespeople aren't selling it, because they've got to put meat on the table. So you can realign your comp plan. You can think about upselling. Think about that customer lifetime value that I mentioned. Relationships and skills that are not really in the right places to sell cloud. That's a tough one, to be honest with you, and I think that's probably the biggest obstacle and the hardest one to overcome. That you're talking about getting the right people, the right skills, moving from comfort zones inside of your customer organization, talking to new buyers, people that you didn't think are necessarily even interested in IT, people that are perhaps running lines of businesses. They don't have time to wait for IT. I know, I get it. There's shadow IT that we all, we don't want to necessarily contribute to, but if you work with your IT friends and you sort of chart your course properly, you can have them be your biggest champion and help talk to these new buyers and have those right types of relationships. So that's my sermon in terms of, that's my opinion. I guess some people would disagree, but I feel strongly that the time has come that we need to figure out what are the obstacles and move past.
Hey, Don, before you move off that slide,
sure, Jerry.
I want to share something. I've been here for 2 years, and I'd say probably for the first year and a half, I felt a little bit like John the Baptist evangelizing this notion that if customers are not asking for the cloud yet, it may be that they're just not asking our partners. And I'd have to say in the last 6 months, I've been surprised that some of our partners are beginning to report back that is happening, that they are going into account situations and lo and behold finding out that their customers have made a cloud decision and that they were not part of that conversation. So I would say that I'm seeing a trend that's beginning to develop where, our partners are maybe being left out in the cold, and that's why I think this session is so important to let the partners know that this is a reality. Right? Your customers are looking for cloud, and we want to help you figure out how to address some of these things that may be barriers in your business today, and that's where we're presenting this through Don, and hopefully as you go through this, you'll see Don as a resource that may be able to help you, that is, completely independent of Cirrity, but, we'll have a vested interest in helping you to be successful. But I can tell you this, the frog in the boiling water, we're getting more and more feedback from our partners that this is becoming their reality, and we don't want you to be in that situation.
Great points, Jerry. And so, and as you mentioned that, one of the first things I do with my clients is I'll want to take a look. If you have the data and if you'll share it with me, I'll take a multiple look at your top accounts, and we'll take a look at what direction. That first chart that I put up, is it going up and to the left? We'll take a look and see what direction it's actually going. And sometimes you'll see a direct correlation between, unfortunately, those two graphs, right, showing that because of what's happening in the cloud and their inability to embrace it, it's going in the wrong direction, unfortunately. So they're actually getting churn. I call that churn inside of a key account, which is very bad. You know what it costs to get those accounts, and it's very hard to find the next one. So thanks, Jerry. So, again, going back now here to talk a little bit about what's already been done. And again, I'll throw on another commercial for your webinar. I thought it was very well done, Jerry. As I thought about it, I said, does any of this disagree with the things that I believe and preach in? And frankly, there was nothing there. Some of these are a little bit more technical than others. If you talk about security and compliance and, talking about their infrastructure and its resiliency, but still, if you think about it, it's still coming back to, putting up the timeout signal with the customer and saying, really, is this the path that you want to take, Mr. Customer? Are you sure that you want to continue, building infrastructure and you don't want to be in that call? Okay, well, if that's the case, then that's great. But if you don't, I'm going to give you an option so we can have the world is the hybrid cloud, right? We can help you with your hybrid strategy going forward. So you talked about the status quo, getting Cirrity involved early, and I'm a big believer in getting involved early in any sales campaign because that results in bigger deals and more profitable deals. We'll talk about that more, but I think the idea of getting Cirrity involved, the fact that you guys have actually offered a subject matter expert that will actually get in a car and drive with you and help you talk to those customers so you're self-sufficient, I think that's a phenomenal value. Getting in on business needs and proposing the cloud option, being a little bit, proactive, diagnosing the needs, and we'll talk more about this. Security, reliance, compliance we talked about. Referrals is a big deal, which I'm going to talk about here today as well. And leveraging your trusted status is always a big deal. And I think that there's tons of opportunity inside of our existing customers. I mean, the world always wants to go get the new customer. I think that's important. But I've done a lot of work with strategic accounts and building out programs to kind of look at your share of wallet inside of an existing account. And there is usually way more opportunity inside of your existing accounts than most people even think. And so protect is critically important, number one priority, and then grow right after that once you've protected your base. So a lot of this conversation is going to be about that today. So on the right, I'm going to talk about this overarching concept that I call a demand creation sales strategy versus a demand fulfillment strategy. And it's not easy to do. It's not necessarily something you think about doing every day, but I promise you, if you can start to think that way a little bit more every day in the context of some of the things and the tools and the processes that I'm going to suggest here as well, and you, again, superimpose that against your cloud business and where do we want to go with that, I promise you it will make a big difference in your entire organization. If you're a CEO, it'll make a difference in your organization, and if you're a sales rep on the street with the customer, it'll make a difference in your business. A couple of pieces inside of here that I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk a lot about compensation, although I will tell you, I believe it's job one. If you don't have a compensation program that's aligned to sell cloud, I can almost tell you that no matter how much you want to and try to and have great offerings and partners that are aligned to support you, your sales team is going to sell something else because, again, they have to put food on the table. So it's no surprise, a statistic that says 80% of IT services providers are going to change their compensation program in 2017. I'm not suggesting wholesale changes, but in some cases I certainly would, and I'd be happy to look at yours. I've done a number of them transformations of those, but they all have to be done with kid gloves and be very careful, because you are really messing with crown jewels when you do change the compensation program. Talking about how to access and sell to these new buyers, it's critical. You've got to have some executive conversation skills, because a lot of these folks are not necessarily purely IT folks anymore. They have options, and you need to be able to talk their language. And if you can't, somebody else probably will. And I know, when I met Jerry, one of the things that he had told me that was very successful in selling Cirrity was having some sort of vertical relevance. Now, not everybody who calls on manufacturers can say that they've grown up in manufacturing. They don't necessarily know every single business, and the same with financial services and down the line. But to the extent that you can get a little bit smarter about their specific vertical and what things are important, how they make money, and have those conversations in the context of whatever it is you're selling, whether it be a solution in the cloud, on-prem, some sort of hybrid, services that go along with it, whatever that is, having some sort of conversation about that vertical, even with our IT friends, is more and more important these days. And I'm a big believer, and I've got a lot of experience in driving a consistent sales methodology. And I call this the sales planning methodology, which we're going to talk about in a few slides here. And those consist of territory plans and reviews, account plans and reviews, opportunity plans and reviews, and then the all-important and everyday call plan, right? Every time you're going to get in front of a customer, you should think about what you're going to say and how do you say it, and how do you execute on that call. These are not necessarily for every single account in every single day, but if used properly, these can transform your business. I've seen it happen. I've been involved in implementing them. I've seen great companies implement these types of programs and have huge success. And then right now we're going to talk a little bit about reference and referral programs. I find that a lot of clients and companies that I talk to don't do an awesome job at just looking at their existing customer base and figuring out why those clients spend money with them, and then really capturing the essence of what they've done for these clients, and then going back and figuring out, how do I now leverage that? How do I leverage that into my talk track, into my value proposition, into my questions, into my conversations with my clients on a day-to-day basis? So the ability to reference what you've done with other clients, and I'd say one step even better is when that customer that likes you so much, thinks so highly of your company, is actually willing to refer you to a peer of theirs or some other client. And by the way, referrals come from different areas as well. As an example, they come from our vendors as well. So there's lots of areas that you can get referrals. So I'll talk about that in a second here, but first we talked about this whole notion of demand creation, and this is a fairly busy slide, and I put lots of colors in here because it's a gray day up in New England, just to kind of make everybody a little bit more cheerful. But the idea here is that, a customer's business is a continuum. It starts over on the left-hand side in the C-suite, and you can put these titles and some of these activities. You can move them around because not every company is the same. But in general, you've got an executive suite on the left-hand side who starts the year, says, hey, we want to grow. We want to become more profitable. We want to open a shop in Asia. We want to get more profitable, better mix of our profit margins. We want to come out with new products, whatever it may be. They're not necessarily thinking about IT solutions, but they know sure as heck that strategically they need to do something in order to move their business to the next level. At some point in the process, IT, senior management, CIO and team, application folks, whether it be infrastructure folks, whatever, they get an order from upstairs that says, hey, we're trying to do this. We have some IT needs to be able to support that. We need to go, build systems. We need to go buy products, whatever those technologies are, et cetera. So the IT organization does what they do well, right? They figure out what are the standards, the compliances, the policies. They get involved in building RFPs, which is a lot of times where we get involved, right? We spend a lot of time knowing, hey, at least we know it's a real deal. They've spent a lot of money to put an RFP together, so we know that we've got a 1 in 4 chance of winning it. So that's exciting, and I'm not saying that there's not a lot of business in that space, because there is. But the unfortunate part is it's fulfillment, and the fulfillment, the downside of it being right there and in front of your face is that it's easy to be commoditized, and being commoditized means your margins go down. You're being racked and stacked against your competitors. It's not an exciting place to be at all times. Obviously, somebody at some point will have to implement this technology in that customer's organization. And at some point, somebody's going to look at it and say, geez, we've got to keep this system going. Did we, we bought this technology or service up here. Is this giving us what we wanted? And hopefully the answer is yes, and you as an organization have had some sort of success, and you can claim that success. Now, when I talk about references and when I talk about referrals, I talk about taking that success, making sure we capture it, document it, and bring it back to some other C-level suite or some other person involved in either that client organization or another client organization to say, here are proof points in what we've been able to do for you. So it kind of continues. Success breeds success. And then obviously, just on a smaller basis, you sold something one time and now they don't have to go out to bid every time, right? It's a sort of a self-funding project and or an annuitized service, which is equally as exciting because now you don't have to go sell, get commoditized, and this all ties back to, I think, that first slide we talked about. So my big imperatives on this, going back to selling earlier, higher, wider with your clients, find that new buyer. That sales plan is going to be critical in being able to unlock some of these things and to be able to allow you to have those deeper, broader, higher-level conversations with your clients, and then, as I mentioned, to measure and leverage your client successes. Okay? So we talked about references and referrals. I'd say this is one big thing that I would really take a look at. It may seem easy. Sometimes people, smack themselves in the head and go, geez, I wish I had thought of that. We've got all these opportunities right in front of us because, we do a great job. We just have to go and make sure we've got our references in a good database and get that out. Well, it is easy from that standpoint, but to get it together is not so easy. You really need to have some executive sponsorship behind this to think about what are the different types of references we're going to have. So we can talk with our customers about, is it just a name drop? Is it going to be one slide that we can put up in front of them? We've got to make sure that the client who we're referencing is okay with that. So there's some things there that you've got to do. And then you really got to look across your business and make sure that sales contributes, marketing contributes, services contributes. Other parts of the organization also contribute. And again, that's not so easy because these are busy folks and they're not necessarily motivated and compensated to go back and find out what we did on the last project. So, but I would still say to you that it's critically important. And if you're not doing this today, I would really start with this. Now, referrals is a separate story. Everybody says, oh, we get referrals sometimes. Our clients often refer us. But there's a difference between being proactive and being reactive. If you're being reactive, you may get 5% of your customers who really like it to suggest you connect with one of their peers. My suggestion is learn how to do a referral program, learn how to build it. If you're an executive in your organization, get behind it and figure out how you're going to not only incent your sales, marketing, other folks who touch the customer to ask for referrals, but you teach them how to do it. What's a polite, nice, productive, effective way to ask for a referral so that, most of your selling is done by the time you get in front of that client. So now going on with the topic of sales planning and execution. Again, people think about planning, especially sales folks. They don't have a whole lot of attention span sometimes, and rightfully so. They're busy working on stuff. I get that, and this represents sometimes some extra work. And sometimes you've had failed programs where a manager has had this bright idea about having them fill out a form for a couple of days and then, get up in front of a grill session in front of their executive team and then they walked out of the meeting 2 hours later, didn't get anything out of it. And then they, in fact, maybe they even got demoted because they didn't do such a great job, didn't know their customer well enough or whatever. And then even worse than that the plan itself got dusty, sat in some drawer and was never thought of again. My suggestion is that can happen easily. At the same time, if this is done properly and in steps, and you think about it in the context of how can I leverage these types of methodologies against my company, against the goals, such as selling cloud in my business this year, 2017. If I were to superimpose that across this stack, I could use these tools as a way to really unlock and find opportunities and then go drive those opportunities because I'm having better conversations with my clients. I've got my organization aligned around these concepts. I've really mapped out and thought about who's who in my customer, not 3 years ago, but reality today. Who's in that organization? What new businesses have arrived, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot to talk about here and sort of take on a life of their own. But again, leveraging some of the tools a little bit at a time can really make a big difference. So the territory plan is kind of a big look at your business. If you're a rep, if you are a VP of sales, again, it's a big look at your business, all of your customers, all of your prospects. What are we going to do this year? Generally speaking, this is a once a year activity. You're looking at your market, the territories. You're looking at your install base analysis. You're looking for, which customers are going to have, which ones are you going to, have the best chance of making a return on your invested time, frankly. A lot of what this will drive across all of these 4 areas is, where should I spend my time as a business person? And then once I'm decided what I'm going to do, how am I going to do it? And who else is going to support me? The account plan is the next view down. I say territory is sort of the 10,000-foot view. The account plan, the 1,000-foot view, which says, let's look at our account. What's our long-term vision there? Who are the people inside there? How are we positioned? Do they like us? Do they not like us, and why? Who are the executives in that organization? How do we make sure that our executives also know theirs, so they've got a trust factor and a confidence factor? They like where we're going as an organization, not just where we are today, because that can make a big difference. And then looking at the different list of opportunities that may be there that you either have today in front of you or that you're going to, you're going to create over the next 3 to 6 months. And then prioritizing which ones of those am I going to now prioritize and spend my time on. Then the next level down is that opportunities plan. So when a specific opportunity comes along, maybe it's then the first cloud opportunity inside of the customer, okay? What is the customer's initiatives and how does this tie into that? Qualifying a deal. I've got a couple slides I'll show you on qualifications here that are very helpful. You can take these home and use them today. And how do I qualify a deal to make sure that, again, I as a sales rep or my organization, below me, if I'm a CEO, is spending time working on the right types of deals, right? I can't tell you how many CEOs I talk to that say, I really don't know if all my resources are being burned up on the wrong opportunities. But if you look at win-loss ratios, a lot of times that'll point to you're not working on the right opportunities in the first place. So qualification's key. Looking at your competitive scenario, where you're at, looking at your decision makers and criteria. What's our unique value proposition? When we're allowed the ability to tell the client what is our unique value proposition, you don't want to start that one too early. And then specifically, what are the tactics that we're going to do? Okay, we're reviewing this today. It took us 15, 20 minutes as a team to say how we're going to go win this deal. Who's doing what? And when is the next time we're going to get back together to see how we're doing? Because this one's a little bit complex. There's lots of people we need buying into. We need them to do A, B, and C. How are we going to track that? So I'm going to show you some tools that will support this in a couple of minutes as well. And what I would submit to you is this is the one piece out of the 4 that should be being done every single day. If you're having meetings with your clients, you should be making sure that you prepare for those meetings and know what questions you're going to ask, and you're doing the right types of research, and you're sort of triangulating against these people that you're meeting with other folks in their organization to get smart about what they care about and what's important to them, et cetera. And then so that you're having a very effective conversation with your client when you do sit down and meet with them. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well before we wrap up. This is just a sort of a high level. This is just an example. If I were a VP of sales in one of your companies, I'd say, listen, we can't do every one of these types of plans every single day. It's just it would bring us to our knees. But the reality is there are certain situations in which we'd really want to leverage these, get all of our smart people together in a room and talk about an opportunity plan, as an example, to win the cloud deal at customer ABC. So that's a perfect example. You guys need to figure out what's the right criteria as to where you would weave these types of templates and methodologies into your monthly, quarterly, and frankly, daily practice. Call plan, again, is the one that's right there at the ground level you're going to do every day, right? Sales needs to own this, but your extended team should be involved in, again, helping and trying to, make the program and the strategies better so that you get all the best ideas out in front of the sales teams and they feel fully supported and they can go close deals. Because if the sales folks don't feel like they're getting value out of this process, then you're kind of wasting your time. That has been my experience. Jerry, I'm going to keep moving. We're at the bottom of the hour here. We've got a few more slides that I want to cover. Is there anything I should stop for at this point?
No, I mean, I think you're doing well. So let's keep moving.
Good. So as promised, I want to give you a few things that you can take home and use right away. Again, going with this whole, same messaging around sales planning, including things at the territory level, the account level, the opportunity level, and the call level. So let's just say we want to figure out, okay, well, geez, where do we start? We really do need to start with our, let's say you're a rep. I need to start looking at my entire customer base. Probably want to start with some of my install base. Who would be a good target for cloud solutions? You could sort of stick your finger up in the air. You could go by gut feel. I'm not saying that those things don't have some value, but you can also pretty quickly think across the top of a sheet of paper or an Excel spreadsheet. Say, what are the things that would qualify a client like one of these to be a good fit, a good target for positioning cloud solutions? Well, let's see, there's the downside risk. Geez, I know Southern Company. This happened to be somebody from Atlanta who I stole this from. We did a little exercise with their territory. But Southern Company would be, I know that they're buying cloud solutions from somebody else, and so they're high. So I give them a 7 score and say, I've really got to protect that because there's downside risk. And I think there's very high short-term revenue. I know that there's deals that are right there that we can go get. There's long-term opportunity because they're a big client. The company fit is great. We do exactly what they need. We know they're motivated. They're good people. They care. They like what we do. And by the way, if we do a great job for these guys, they can be strategic, a reference account. And this is not an all-ending list, right? So you can add things on here. You can take these out if they don't apply. The point is build something that's appropriate for your business. And then, give it a score and see what it comes up to. And maybe you can prioritize in buckets of A's, B's, and C's, right? Because, again, you only have so many hours in the day, and anything you can do to prioritize where you're going to spend your time on a day, quarter, week, year is time well spent. I talked a little bit about the opportunity plan. Now, this is kind of a big picture, right? So picture you're a sales rep and a manager and a team of, let's say you got your services folks in the room. You've got maybe your technical folks in a room. Maybe you've got your Cirrity partner rep in a room, or dare I even say, Jerry, some other partner. I mean, frankly, you can use this process for any type of complex deal that you're trying to drive, and you're trying to get a lot of people on board and get their ideas. This gives you a process and a structure, and I've folded it into 2 pages. There is a longer version of this that you can always adopt, but I think starting small with something like this gives a sales manager and even a top executive a really good dashboard into a specific key account and gives them something they can look at and says, okay, who's the account manager? Okay, right. Who's the customer? What does this customer look like in terms of their financials? How have we done with them? Okay, what is the customer, what's kind of their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities as a customer? Why would they even do anything with us? Okay, our key contacts are over here. The opportunity we're going after, what's the opportunity from a revenue standpoint, et cetera, strategic value. What's our value message? And we'll talk a little bit more about this before we close up today. This is important as well, right? And then this is a critical area over here. It's like qualifying the opportunity. So this is an area where if I'm a sales manager, I might be able to say, you know what, our qualification score, this review is no better than it was in our last review. Maybe we should think about trying to move away. Maybe that deal is just never going to happen, and we could be spending our time on something better. So I'm going to show you those templates a little bit here, and we'll make those available to you coming off of this call. Talking about obstacles to success, what are the things we need to work around? So that drives now the second page, which is our competitive strategy, what we need to do to win, and then very specifically, what are the tactics? I talked about getting people in your organization enrolled, maybe people from Cirrity or another partner enrolled in your crusade to go win this deal, right? So this is an opportunity for you to stand up in front of them and say, hey, listen, I'll do this, you guys do that, and here's the timing, and then you can review this on a weekly, on a monthly basis, depending upon how often you think is appropriate to to review an opportunity. So 2-page opportunity plan. I've never seen one of these deal reviews go down, whether it be, just a small audience or a large group of people in a conference room or on a WebEx like this, and it not be super valuable to everybody involved. They always cringe a little bit when they think about filling out forms, but if it's done right and supported and doesn't go off as a grill session to the reps and the management team, it can be extremely effective and very collaborative for your organization. So we talked a little bit about qualifications, and I'll show you this as well. And I'm not going to go through every piece of every template, but I will promise you it's actually a pretty quick and dirty way to qualify just about any deal. And it is customizable as well. You guys can take this and you can add in other critical things that you think are important in qualifying whether a deal is going to close or not. So the 4 key areas are: is the deal real? How well do we fit versus the requirements versus the customer? Can we compete and win? And, is it even worth our energy? It may be a huge undertaking and not that big of a payoff. Is it worth it? Maybe it is in the spirit of a long-term customer relationship, but maybe not. So this gives you the tools and some sort of a numerical way and a methodology to sort of weigh that. And then, again, you can still put your finger in the air. You can still see what your gut is telling you, but it's a really, really good way to get everybody on the same page and start thinking the same way about the deals that they're working on. So this is the reality scores I mentioned up in here. This is item number 1. So there's 4 questions around reality. I'll let you read most of these, measurable payback if the customer, and these are very solution selling oriented. These are very consultative type questions. So it's not a super transactional kind of paradigm that this is built around. It's built around, really understanding your customer, understanding how they do business, understanding what's important to them, and then, taking a real look in the mirror and say, do we really have a shot? Do we really deserve to win this deal? And sometimes your score is low. You'll see over here, right? You're going to score yourself a 0 or 2, depending upon where you think you're, and this little key here tells you where to grade it. And you're going to take a hard look at your scores, and then you're going to say, are there some things over here that we can do to enhance this? And maybe there are, and maybe they're not. And that goes back to that other slide that shows our score last time and our score this time. So you can see how a deal is progressing. So this one's on the qualification for the fit. How do we fit versus this customer versus this opportunity? And again, 0, 1, and 2 for the scores. Add them up. How do we do? Not so great. Maybe we ought to think again. Maybe we ought to figure out something new to improve our score so we can drive this deal. Maybe we can expand the deal. Maybe we can change it and win it in a different way. Competitive. How are we doing with our competitors, versus them? Are we strong? Are we weak? How can we minimize our weaknesses while sort of leveraging our strengths? Where are we in the buying process? What are the decision criteria? Who are the key people? Do we even know what those things are? It asks some tough questions. And then, again, as I mentioned before, should we even be chasing this deal? Is it really worth our time? And then, this is just some advice, and I won't go through all this, but at some point you have to say, this is maybe not something we should even be chasing. We should put our energy into something that's better fit for us, because we could be spending, lots and lots of money. I know probably some executives out there probably nodding their head going, yeah, we spend lots and lots of money on deals that we should never chase in the first place. So this ties into the overall concept of finding a new buyer inside of your organization. As we mentioned, I know you're seeing it, that it's not the director of IT all the time now who's got the opportunity that he's putting in front of you with an RFP associated with it. There are shadow IT that's going on, dare I say, and there are opportunities that have to be created that haven't even been discussed yet, and that may never have any competition, because you're going to be there first and engage a different type of buyer with a different type of conversation that may be around speed to market, and it may be around serving their clients, right? So to be able to find those new buyers is critically important, to find them and then to gain some traction, to get invited in, to have a conversation with them about things that they care about, and then, frankly, dare I say, to get invited back in again is even more important. So this is a fantastic mnemonic. This is one that you should sort of take from the deck and put it in your briefcase, put it on your smartphone or whatever. It works. It's great. It's called the 7 C's. We can talk about this some other time, but it starts with, capturing somebody's attention. It's around confirming that you know their issues so that they know you're relevant, establishing some credibility, making sure that people recognize that they can wait, but they, probably got to take action sooner rather than later, and why. Showing that you have some capability and why is your solution a possible one. Competitive differentiation. Every customer I've ever talked to wants to know why we're different, why we're better, and how that matters to them and how it connects up to what matters to them. And then some sort of a call to action. So you can use this in emails, you can use it in voicemails, you can use it in your meetings and getting prepared for them, in your proposals. Heck, you can even use it on a Cirrity webinar. I can tell you I used this when I got ready for this call today just to make sure that we had, most important things, and hopefully I've kept your attention up to this point. Sales call planning and execution. When we do these events with groups of sales folks, boy, there's a lot of excitement in the room, and everybody wants to do better at doing what they do every single day. If they're sales reps, or again, if you're a CEO, you're out there in the field having conversations with client executives, and you want to make sure that you're on your best game. So like everything else, there's a process, there's a way to do it better and more effectively, and there's a way to just wing it, and you sort of take what you get. So the methodology that I preach is, do your analysis first, make sure you know what matters to them, go back in previous meetings, talk to other people, lots of information on the internet. Think about the session that you're going to have with this customer, and think about the likely issues that they're going to have. You may not know exactly what they're struggling with, but you can probably guess pretty well. And that's an opportunity to brainstorm the types of challenges that they have and maybe what solutions they might be interested in. And then that allows you to ask great questions when you're in front of that client. And I'd select the top 3 to 5 best ones and go with open questions, closed questions. There are lots of question-based methodologies that you can use out there. They're all pretty good. That's something that I potentially could help folks with. But, there's no substitute for asking great questions to important clients. If, as I mentioned before, if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity for them to say, what is your value message? What is, why are you guys the best? Well, you probably want to make sure that you understand that customer really well and know what matters to them, because otherwise you're going to say 10 things, and maybe 3 of them only matter to that customer. Maybe none of them do, right? They may be great things to somebody else, but not necessarily to them. And then, when you're in the meeting, it's what kinds of next steps, who's doing what, how do we follow up and make sure that we've got our next steps. So this is kind of a broad methodology. It applies to just about every sales team, and even folks that are really at the top of their game get value out of sometimes going back to the basics and figuring out how do I have more effective meetings. We're at the end here, folks. So solution value message I mentioned before. Again, if you are asked what's your solution value message, right? Again, it should tie back to the 7 C's that you've thought about already. It should be measurable and tangible. It should talk, where possible, around business and financial value. It should talk about what your specific customer, the person you're talking to, what they care about, not what you think they care about. There should be some differentiation and some proof points, references, examples of projects that you've done before, et cetera. And so with that, I think we are at about 10 minutes of Jerry, and we can open up for questions here in a second. Jerry and I kind of put our heads together and thought that, some things that might be valuable for you. First of all, there's a lot to digest here. We're going to send this slide deck out, and there will be a replay of the webinar so you can listen to it again. Maybe some folks on your team were not able to listen into it. So, certainly replay those and take a look at the slide. But then think about it in the context of your business and what you think you might actually get the most value out of. You can't necessarily do all of these things all at once, but a good step forward on a handful of the highest priority ones could really make a big difference in getting out of the gates fast. Jerry and team have put together a one-page cloud readiness assessment. It's not super deep. It's a good one. It's a nice, easy one to fill out, and it can get you and your organization thinking. Our suggestion was maybe you fill that out, and Jerry and team will get that out to you. And then Jerry and team are going to sponsor a 1-hour consultation with me at Altus, and, we'll see where it goes, right? Anything I can do to help, just as I'm doing today, consider me a friend that wants to help out. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something in a broader way. If that's the case, then that's great too. I would say reach out to me directly if I can help you. I'm at don@altusalliance.com, or my cell is there below, 860-881-7438. If you're going to do the crowd readiness assessment, I think it's a better way to start the conversation, because that's gotten your head aligned to what you're trying to do a little bit more, and it gives me something to look at before we get into the call, and we can have, I think, a much more productive conversation. And I do have access to significantly more assessment materials depending upon what that tells us, so we can go in depth with people and process and lots of things around the cloud readiness side. So, this is not all we've got. Trust me, there's a lot more behind this, but this is a good way to kind of get things going should you be interested in talking some more. So I'm going to take a deep breath, Jerry, and I'm going to hand it back over to you. I know there's usually a question or two that are out there, whether they come in via WebEx or whether they come in via the lines, and you guys may want to open them up, and I'm going to stop there and take a sip of water.
Well, thank you, Don. That was quite a bit. I mean, you really shared, I think, many insights on things that you've done to help other partner organizations be successful. So as Don said, we'll open it up to any questions that you may have. This is your opportunity to ask Don. This is all for you as partners. All right. So one question that's just come in is, you've given us a lot there, Don. If there was one thing that you think would be the most important thing that we do when we get off the phone, what would that be?
Oh, I get the one thing question, right? Everybody wants the one thing. I get that one a lot. I think I probably led with it. I think the first thing is to really take a look at, how you were aligned to sell cloud. It's the alignment, and it probably starts just with that compensation plan. Again, I'll say it again. You've got to get your compensation aligned with your organization as job one, and then you can go to work. Then there's a lot of stuff to do behind that usually, but that's a critical piece. You can do all the other stuff downstream, right? And if that's out of alignment, and you'll know it, you'll probably hear clues. If you're an executive, you'll hear it from your sales folks. If you're a salesperson on the streets, you're going to feel it. You're going to know it. So it should be pretty obvious. And sometimes they don't take massive overhauls, but I would really encourage you to take a look at that as job one anyway.
So Don, how would you answer the concern of, man, I've got some people who are doing really well now. I'm afraid that if I change the comp plan, I'm going to somehow break what's working in order to try to drive something new. What are your thoughts on how our partners can manage against that and the concern that they have about breaking what's already working in their business?
Yeah, well, it's a fair point. And I would say that anytime you change process or methodologies or, a lot of the things in here are destined to break things, right? Your job as a leader is to figure out, and of course I can help you, or one of us can help the partner to figure out how do we fix a lot more than we break. I say this a lot, right? Because the reality is when you change something, there are things that you're not even thinking about that potentially could go awry on the backside. And so you do have to figure out what's your mitigation strategy with what is working. So you want to. There's no clear-cut answer, but if you recognize that is absolutely the case, and don't go in willy-nilly with it, and stay the course, you'll find those answers.
Okay. Another question I get from partners is this whole notion of the transformation of the skills, because sales skills and an ability to have conversations outside of IT and about business is an important element of being able to talk about cloud and managed services. What's your view on, the ability to take an existing team that may be very, very good at transactional sales? They know how to drive gross profit on a monthly basis. What's your experience in being able to transform or transition a team like that to start selling new types of services that require new conversations, maybe a longer sales cycle. Is that doable, or is it something where our partners need to be considering, a different type of sales structure to have that type of skill set in their organization?
Yeah, it could be any of those, Jerry, and that's why it's that's why sales managers have such a tough job. So what I recommend is at least a process to look at your existing sales team, right? Your sellers. You've got to take a look at people in sort of a few different dimensions, and I recommend you take a look at them in the context of, what are their core attributes, or I call it their DNA. Are they sort of built for the role? At least maybe they're built for the role today, but not necessarily built for the role tomorrow. And that's going to be very hard to transition them. It's going to be very difficult to create something that's not there. So that sort of underlying DNA, and I've got an assessment tool. If anybody's interested in it, that can actually help to figure out what are those core attributes. What should we be looking for? Because if you don't have a great sort of score, if you will, on those core DNA attributes, then all the training in the world probably isn't going to make a difference. But let's just say that somebody doesn't have necessarily the skills that they need for today. Hey, no harm, no foul. A lot of us don't, right? We're all learning this as we go. But there's lots of those sort of fundamental attributes that are great, and you can build upon them. Well, then that's probably somebody you should invest in. And that's an organization, that's an executive decision that says, we think most of our folks are able to make this transition. Maybe the ones that can't, shouldn't have to, maybe they do something else. And the ones that we really want to invest in, now that we understand still that is going to be a journey. I'm not going to promise you that that's going to happen overnight. We all know that that's not the case. Even the best folks in today's world are going to take some time to sort of cross that chasm. So you got to be patient. You got to make sure you don't just sort of hodgepodge that and not really answer the key questions that they need answered. And then the third piece is just looking at their performance, but that's sort of, everybody looks at performance, how are they doing versus quota, et cetera, but it doesn't always tell the full story. It's about those three key pieces. Who are they, what do they know, and how are they performing in the job?
Okay, good. Thank you. Other questions? Anyone on the phones? All right. I don't have any other questions coming in through the chat. So I guess just summarizing for the partners that have participated, we at Cirrity are very, very committed to your success. Our success is entirely dependent on your success. And through resources like Don, we want to give you what you need to be able to make the transition. We know the transition isn't easy, but we are seeing that there are partners that get it. They understand it. We're seeing partners that are making the changes through the compensation plan, that are investing in the training, that are getting us involved in doing a number of the things that are in the best practices. And that's why we've seen the 62% growth in revenue, and we've seen that 42% more of our partners are in revenue than were last year. And so, please follow up on what Don has suggested. Give some thought about 2017 as you approach 2017. Think about how satisfied you are with the business that you've done with Cirrity and with Cloud. Think about what gaps you may have based on the things that Don covered, and then take the Cloud assessment. The Cloud assessment is really intended to kind of give you an introspective look at where you stand and what you really think about the Cloud and how prepared you are for it. And then take that conversation with Don. It's 1 hour that I think will be very, very well spent. You've gotten a flavor of how Don thinks and what his experience is. And I think that if you are willing to make that investment in 1 hour, that can give you some good insights as to what you can do for 2017 to make it a banner year when it comes to cloud services. And, that's an offer. That's something we're sponsoring and hosting for you. And I'm hoping that all of you will be willing to at least make that step. 1 hour to grow your business in a market that is many billions of dollars, I don't think is a big ask of you. So hopefully you've enjoyed this webinar. As we said before, we'll be sending you copies of the slides and the recording, and certainly reach out to Don, reach out to me, reach out to your partner account manager, and let's take the steps now that will set us up for success in 2017. With that, I thank you all. I appreciate your time and attendance and look forward to working with you for the rest of this year and leading into 2017. Thank you very much.